On the third episode of this show, we discussed the age-long Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's been absolute bloodbath, running into the loss of thousands of lives, particularly of civilians. By the time you are watching this, the death toll will be much higher. That was 3 weeks ago. Right now, reports says in Gaza, more than 20,000 people have been injured. Over 7,000 people are dead. About half of that are kids. So the death toll has definitely gone higher. Meanwhile, there's one more thing that has also gone higher: the world's curiosity about Palestine. After our last episode on the conflict, we've gotten requests from you all to break down the Palestinian situation further. And your curiosity is understandable. In fact, it's a global affair. Questions about Palestine are topping the list on Google search engine. So on this episode, we'll attend to your curiosity. We'll answer 10 key questions about Palestine. And fair warning here, understanding Palestine with 10 questions is a tough job. It's complex, but we'll try to keep it simple and put the spotlight on the gray areas. So question 1, what is Palestine? The Palestine of today is made up of 2 parts, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Together, both make up what is called the State of Palestine. You know the irony? These 2 geographic areas do not share a border with each other at all, yet together they are known as a country. I told you it's a complex mix. Put together, the total area that forms the State of Palestine is more than 6,000 square kilometers. Now question 2, where is Palestine located? We'll try and use a map to explain this right now. That's Africa. A little bit up to the northeast of Africa is West Asia. In there you have the State of Israel and then the 2 parts that makes up Palestine. It lies in the area called Southern Levant. It's a geographical term to signify areas in the Eastern Mediterranean. This is the Gaza Strip, the area that has been relentlessly pounded by a brutal airstrike by Israeli forces since the Hamas attack earlier this month. On the west of the Gaza Strip is the Mediterranean, and to the south is Egypt. Then Gaza has Israel on 2 sides, the north and the east. Then for the other part, the West Bank, it has Jordan on the east, and then it is surrounded by Israel on the north, the south, and the west. Next question, is Palestine a state? Apparently what we have here are 2 fragments of land. So how can 2 areas that are not connected by any form of border form a single country? Well, that's the Palestinian case for you. It's complex, I told you. The United Nations recognizes these 2 areas. In all of its documents, the UN refers to them as the State of Palestine. Not just that, nothing less than 139 countries around the world recognize Palestine as a nation. Is Nigeria among them? Yes, it is. We have recognized Palestine as a nation since 1984. Also, Nigeria is a member of the African Union, the AU, which has traditionally supported the Palestinian cause. In fact, in 1973, Nigeria severed diplomatic ties with Israel in protest of the Yom Kippur War that Israel fought with Palestine. This diplomatic relation would not be restored until 1992. Also, Nigeria is a founding member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, which supports the Palestinian cause. Palestine is also a member of that grouping. We mentioned that earlier in our 3rd episode. We also mentioned how Nigeria abstained from voting for Palestine in a UN resolution in 2014, and how that decision shaped the state of the conflict as we know it right now. But it's also very intriguing to note that Nigeria has in the past provided financial and humanitarian aid to Palestine. Now, question 5. If so many countries recognize Palestine as a nation, it must have national markers, right? You know, markers like a flag, a passport, a capital. Does Palestine have all of them? Well, it does have a flag. This one. You must have seen it in videos of protests in support of Palestine across the globe. They also have a passport. It is issued to residents of Palestinian territories and also to Palestinians born abroad. As for the capital, that's where things start to get a lot more contentious. Palestine says Jerusalem is its capital, but so does Israel. And this is the major flashpoint in the conflict. Across many years, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has the battle for the soul of Jerusalem at its core. It has led to clashes, killings, and widespread violence because both Israel and Palestine want control of the holy city. Now that brings us to the next question. Why? Why do they want the same capital? The answer is East Jerusalem. It is home to some of the holiest sites in the world. It is where Judaism's 2 sacred temples once stood. It is also the site where Prophet Muhammad is said to have ascended to heaven. And here lies the problem, because both sites are on the same land, the Temple Mount and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They are in the same compound. So there's a precarious power sharing deal here. The country of Jordan is the custodian of the Aqsa Mosque through a body called the Waqf. So Jordan is the custodian of the mosque. Israel controls access to the compound, and Jews are only allowed to pray at the Western Wall. Like I said, it's a precarious power sharing, and this makes Al-Aqsa a recurring flashpoint for conflict. Now, speaking of conflict, there's also another one, and that's about who governs Palestine. And it's quite complicated, but we'll try to break it down for you. In 1948, the Jewish state of Israel was created. This led to the mass displacement of Palestinians. They call it the Nakba. The Palestinians were left with nowhere to go. They became refugees. They moved to other countries to settle. These Palestinians in the diaspora formed what they call the Fatah Party. It's a secular political party. It was founded in 1959 in Kuwait. One of its main founders is this man, Yasser Arafat. He went on to become the president of Palestine, also the biggest name in the Palestinian freedom struggle. So there was a Fatah Party, a party made for Palestinians. And then came the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. It's an umbrella group founded in 1964 in Cairo, Egypt. The PLO brought many parties together, but they had just one cause: the liberation of Palestine. So for the next 3 decades, the PLO was the voice of Palestine. But then in the 1990s, there was the Oslo Accords. It was meant to be a peace agreement between Israel and Palestine. It was signed by 2 men, Yasser Arafat as the chairman of the PLO, and Yitzhak Rabin, the then Prime Minister of Israel. The deal was brokered by Bill Clinton, who was then the President of America. The Oslo Accord was supposed to be a game changer. They were supposed to initiate further peace talks and to lead to a 2-state solution. One state of Palestine and another of Israel. Israel was led by its government. On the Palestinian side, they created something called the PA, the Palestinian Authority. These 2 sides were supposed to negotiate and chart the path to peaceful coexistence, but it did not work out. In the years to come, the peace process broke down, negotiations stopped, and then began an uprising. The year was 2000. Palestinians rose and protested. They call it the Second Intifada. Intifada means uprising. The first one happened in the 1980s. It was largely spontaneous, but the second one, which broke down the peace process, it was triggered. And the trigger was this: Ariel Sharon, a man who became the Prime Minister of Israel. He decided to go into the Al-Aqsa Mosque in violation of the status quo arrangements. He had no business entering the mosque, but he did. It was there for about 45 minutes, and that visit was the spark that lit the powder keg. The region collapsed into chaos. There were protests everywhere, rockets were flying, suicide bombing was widespread. The Palestinian Authority could not rein in its people, so Israel hit back with brutal force. In the end, 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians were killed during the Second Intifada. It was a final nail in the coffin of the peace process. From that moment, Israel shifted its focus from peace to security and expansionism. On the Palestinian side, things were happening too. Yasser Arafat died in the year 2004. The man who took over from him is this: Mahmoud Abbas is the president of Palestine since the 2006 election. What happened during the 2006 election? The result of that election is central to the situation of things in Palestine right now. It split Palestine into 2 political parts. The West Bank went to the PA, the Palestinian Authority, but with Gaza, the story was different. Hamas won the election. Now, what is Hamas? Hamas is a resistance organization. It was first called the Resistance Movement for the State of Palestine. In Arabic, it's pronounced Arafat al-Muqawwamati Dawlati Palestine. Later, it was named Arafat al-Muqawwamati Dawlati Islamiyya, the Islamic Resistance Movement. It was formed during the First Intifada of 1987. It was an offshoot of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in Egypt by Sheikh Hassan al-Banna. Now, unlike the PA, the Palestinian Authority in West Bank, Hamas did not accept the idea of Israel as a country. The Israeli statehood, Hamas did not want it. It also vehemently opposed the Oslo Accords. Today, Israel is said to be at war with Hamas, not Palestine. But here's the fun fact. For a long while, Israel actually did back Hamas. They supported Hamas in order to weaken the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. This is just the way the US once backed the Taliban in Afghanistan in order to counter Russia's influence in the region. So I guess Israel learned from the best, because backing Hamas did work for Israel then. Israel supported Gaza in the 2006 election, and the people of Gaza voted for Hamas. The Palestinian Authority tried to trash out a power-sharing arrangement, but it did not work. Factional fighting broke out again. Many people were killed. In the end, they decided that Hamas would control the Gaza Strip, Why the Palestinian Authority will control the West Bank. So one state, but two rulers, and a whole lot of confusion. You see, many countries do not recognize Hamas. Some have designated them as a terrorist organization. So when these countries engage with Palestine, they engage with the Palestinian Authority in West Bank and Mahmoud Abbas. That means that the people of Gaza have no effective representation. And that brings us to the ninth question. How many people are we even talking about when we speak about Palestine? There are about 5.3 million Palestinians, 3.1 million in the West Bank, and about 2.2 million in the Gaza Strip. And then there's the Palestinian diaspora. Report says more than 6 million Palestinians live across the globe. So what do they want? And that's the final question. What do all of these people want? They want a free Palestine. But what does a free Palestine mean? What would a free Palestine look like? Palestinians have been under Israeli occupation since 1967. They have limited control over their own affairs. From their jobs to their travel, everything is controlled by Israel. Their economy depends on Israel. So does their food and medical aid. In Gaza today, even electricity and water supply are controlled by Israel. As a settler state, that's just too much control over an area you are systematically occupying. Palestinians do not want that to continue. Unfortunately for them, their situation is dicey. Because on one side is the conservative militant group Hamas for the Gaza Strip. Then on the other side is the helpless Palestinian Authority for the West Bank. And then a constantly encroaching military power and Western ally like Israel. Their chances of a free Palestine continue to shrink every day. So like I warned you earlier, the story of Palestine is a very complex one. It's very hard to distill in 10 questions, not in the face of widespread conflicts. This is the third week of the latest escalation in tension, and things don't look good for the Palestinians. We've tried our best to provide context and enhance your understanding of the situation. But in case you have more questions for us, kindly drop it in the comment section. We'll respond to it. Peace is needed in Palestine.